You are listening to the Certified Personal Trainer Podcast, a show by personal trainers for personal trainers. It's time to become a better trainer, get more clients, and change more lives. And now, here's your host, the head coach and founder of Fitness Mentors, Eddie Lester.
Today, as you can see, we are going to talk about how you should be pricing your online coaching business. While there are no rules when it comes to pricing your online coaching business, we here at Fitness Mentors have a lot of suggestions for you guys, and we want to give you our tools and tips to help you out. So what we will learn today, the factors that will impact your pricing. All right. There are many of them. Obviously, money and pricing can make us feel uncomfortable in a way. So there's a huge mental factor behind all of this. So we're going to get into that today very soon. We're also going to go over pricing principles to price and package any service that you have. Obviously, there's many different services that we can have for our online coaching. We have personal training, you can have group fitness, and the ways to do that. So you might have a membership, you might have a big package, you might have an annual fee, right? We're going to dive deep into that today. Speaking of the different types of training, pricing, and package structures, which we have a couple examples today in our presentation for you guys, and we're super excited to share those. And then, like I just said, the real life examples, right? So we're going to tap into those today. As I said before, just to remind you guys, if you have any questions at all, please feel free to write them in the chat. We do have some people on our team that are also in the chat. If it's a question that we can answer in the middle of the webinar, we'll pause and we will answer it right away, especially if it applies to what we're talking about. And if not, we will also have that 20 minutes at the end to answer any other questions. Cool. Alex, do you want to add anything in, or are we ready to get started?
I think that's it. I think
Awesome.
We're ready to fully dive in here.
Great.
So just before we fully get to it, there's a couple really key perspectives. We have been helping people build their pricing for some time, and we wanted to kind of extract these barriers that are in place, regardless of how perfect your pricing is or how great your services are. These are kind of key things to keep in mind as we're going through the presentation. And the biggest one is confidence in your pricing is really crucial. Do not overlook that. The amount of people who I have spoken with in a mentorship setting or whatever it may be, who say, I just keep getting objections to my price, that it's so expensive. And when we dig into it a little bit, they often say, I'm so expensive, who would pay for this? And I'm like, there's the root of the problem right there. If you don't feel that you're worth it as a coach, and if you feel inside these $200 a month that I'm charging, that's expensive. Like, I'm not a bargain. I'm going to have to like persuade people and convince people to pay me this much because it's a lot of money or whatever. That mentality, while it's empathetic and I appreciate it, it is going to bleed through in all your communications. That it's going to be very challenging to portray the value of your services at the price point that it is, if you don't believe that inside. And it's kind of woo-woo and high level, but it's very true. And so I just plant that seed now. And another kind of thought to keep in mind is we're so much more than a trainer who just counts sets and reps, or so much more than the person who gives them just a meal plan or whatever it may be. We are their concierge to living a healthier life. And so I often find that trying to reposition how we see ourselves and our services also helps our pricing too. So I just wanted to plant that seed up front to just keep in mind now and for the rest of your career, especially as you continue to raise your prices. Much of the principles will be applied to in-person and online. So a lot of this focus is online because this is, where people run their own business oftentimes, but many of these principles will apply to in-person as well. The one situation that this won't apply to as much is if you want to go work at a gym where they probably set your prices for you. You just have a little bit less flexibility if you're working at a big box gym to set your prices because that's set at the corporate level and you're going to get paid a certain amount. So this
that
presentation,
sorry to cut you off, Alex,
no,
but
please.
that mentality that you were talking about though carries over into, as far as charging what you're worth and being confident in what you're worth, that absolutely carries over into the in-person side of things, that just as much as it does
Totally
online. So yeah,
Absolutely.
keep that in mind.
100%. And that mentality applies to even if your gym sets your prices.
Right. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
100%.
Well, because it's also more clients coming in or being attracted to come to you, or you being the main trainer or stepping up and having that confidence and energy. It, like you said, it absolutely bleeds through into everything that you do.
100%. And hey, if you like these principles, maybe you can go to 24 Hour Fitness and say, hey, your pricing sucks. That's going to be challenging. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
And like with many other things, there's so very few inherent universal right or wrongs here. It's not valuable to go look at a competitor and say, well, they priced it this, I'm going to price it a little bit lower. We call that the race to the bottom. Very personally, and I'm curious to hear what Matt and Sam think, that is not a race I want to be a part of. I don't want to base my pricing off of just what other people are doing. It should be determined from these individual factors of your own business, your business model, the time you're dedicating, and other things that we'll get into to figure that out for yourself. And so I just find with many of these principle-based conversations, it's very easy to think, what's the best pricing? What's the right way to price? And it's not a helpful line of thinking oftentimes. It's more of, what are the factors that are going to impact my pricing and how can I understand those best?
Yeah. But I do think that, real quick, just on the charging what you're worth and being able to confidently be able to raise your prices over time. I think two of the most powerful things that I heard on this was, one is, if you are working with certain populations, well, any population, especially with their health and fitness, you're adding years to people's lives, right? Like if they listen to what you say, you help somebody lose 20, 30, 40 pounds. If you help an elderly person gain more lean muscle mass, it's going to improve their quality of life. It's just like, if you ask somebody, how much would it cost for you to add 5 years of a higher quality life to the end of your life? It's like, that can be a very astronomical number, right? Like that pricing is basically priceless. You know what I'm saying? And so also what you guys have to understand is that, especially with this age of social media and things, like, you guys are here right now because you guys care about providing a quality service for people. And most of you, I'm sure that I can be confident in saying that you are going to do what's right for the customer. You guys care about getting them results and helping them live a healthier lifestyle. Well, it's just like, there's plenty of charlatans out there that don't have those interests in mind, and those incentives are not aligned. And they do have, the bottom line is what they care about. The profit is what they care about. And so you are competing with those people. So every time that you don't think that you charge what you're worth, you're giving another customer to those people who are going to be charging more and care less about the same customer. So I just really want you to keep that in mind. And that, whenever I heard that stuff, it really set something off different in me, and feeling really confident of like, I know I really want to help these people. And so I will do what it takes to make sure that they come to me and get the results that they're looking for. And often, and that's the last note on this, it's like, if you charge high enough, people are going to care, right? Like they're going to care, they're going to care more. And so obviously what that looks like is what we're about to get into, but I just wanted to make that note before we moved on.
Yeah.
No, it's really powerful. And it's not BS either. When we're talking about, like, you might add 5 years to somebody's life, or you might restore their quality of living or extend it, or whatever it may be. It's true.
Or prevent disease or reduce disease, all these things. It's like, it's legit. It's real.
Right.
Yeah.
It's very real.
So you should care about yourself. No.
Yeah.
Cool, guys. So let's get into, there's 7 factors that are going to impact your pricing here, that we will kind of run through relatively quickly, because we're going to show how these can manifest in different examples and different structures. So if you're like, I want a little bit more on this, feel free to ask a question, and also know that we're going to get to how this might look in real life in various instances soon. So the first one to really keep in mind is, how much work is required for you to build and maintain these services? this is the first thing for you to think about on your end is, what's the input? We know the output. What am I putting into it? When you choose your pricing randomly, you might actually be losing money on a service or a product, depending on how much time that you're spending. And so when you have a brand new service and you're thinking about, okay, what the heck do I price this thing? The first thing that you think about is the time that I'm using to build the service or product or whatever it may be. That's upfront time. That's a little bit less important, but it's more of a one-time cost. And then two, how much work on an ongoing basis? So if you have to spend 6 hours a month with one client who purchases this package with you, or 6 hours a week, or whatever it may be, understanding your hourly rate, you need to ensure that your work is covered and that you're making money off of this service. Because what you don't want to do, you don't want to overwork yourself, get paid less than the work that you're doing. That's going to lead to burnout. That's going to lead to not over delivering. You're going to give a subpar service. And a higher price point means you're more involved, and a lower price point means you're not as involved. And it's not a good or bad thing. It's what does the client need? It can range all the way from, I build this one-off program that it takes zero ongoing work from me because it's a PDF and I have it on my website and people buy it, and perfect. That can be relatively cheap. And is it going to be for the client who wants 4 hours of coaching or wants guidance or wants accountability or this? Probably not. It's going to be for the client who just wants to be told what to do and they need structure and they don't even want the coaching. And so that's an option for them. Or, the other end of the spectrum is maybe you meet with them multiple times a week and you have consultations and you do assessments and you're very involved in other aspects of their health world. That's going to be more. So make it a habit to think about the work that you're putting in when you're thinking about a new pricing.
And this will likely change over time too, right? Because as you're first so whenever I first started out with online coaching, the thing that I had the most of was time, right? I don't have tons of clients yet. So I have tons of time to be pretty involved with my clientele. And so, I can, of course, there's a balance there of balancing how much you charge versus what you provide for that client. However, you're able to give that client a very extensive one-on-one service. And so, right, if you're pretty involved, you can charge a little bit higher. But then as time goes on, as I started to gain more clientele, of course, I want to make sure that I keep that quality high. But at some point, as I get more and more clientele, I'm going to reach a threshold to where I'm like, okay, now I need to maybe build some systems where I'm not trading as much time for money. If I have tons of demand, then I need to make sure that my prices go up a little bit higher. And maybe that's where I do consider making something like a course or a PDF, something, a one-time offer that I can add on to my business in conjunction with the one-to-one coaching, right? So you could have a higher ticket item like one-to-one coaching, and then you could also have something that is a little bit less touch, say like a PDF or a course or an ebook or something like that you could sell at a lower price point. And of course, this is a very dynamic process, but just don't realize that it's not always an either or. It could be an and, but it just depends on where you are in that journey.
And they solve different problems.
Right, exactly.
The one-off program solves a different problem. It's for a different client than your one-on-one coaching or than a course would be.
What I did actually, this is just a little nugget, is just like what I realized after training people, after coaching hundreds of people, I realized, okay, this type of person, this type of demographic and psychographic is coming to me with this certain problem, and I am best suited to help them solve this specific problem. So what did I do? I built a course around it, right? So I built a course. So instead of me doing that, solving that problem for that person one-on-one with coaching, because maybe they couldn't afford it, or maybe I've hit my client cap or whatever it is, I'm like, oh, that's okay. You can do my do-it-yourself course, right? And you can follow along on that. And it helps them solve the problem on themselves, like by themselves. And now, of course, they don't have me guiding them along the process and the accountability with that. However, they have my knowledge. If it was just the knowledge problem that they're looking for, just the structure and the what to do, then that's where the course can obviously be much cheaper, but it can help allow you to solve that problem for that person and make some more passive income on the side.
For sure. And it could be a course, or it's just the thing that doesn't require much ongoing effort from you, that isn't like you have to be there for the client to succeed. It's more of like they get it. And obviously Matt's course is going, and I don't even know, but I just know it's going to be cheaper than a month of coaching or 2 months of coaching, or because Matt isn't involved in the course. It's his knowledge, but he's not, it doesn't require much ongoing work.
It's not customized. It's not individual to that person. There's not check-in, that kind of stuff. Right. And of course there can be variations of that all along the way. Cause maybe you have like the lower pricing option would be something like a PDF or a course or something like that. But then in the middle, you could have some type of group coaching program where you're solving similar problems for a similar group of people, but it's not a hand-holding process, one-to-one process. And then of course you have the higher ticket price point, which is where it is completely customizable. It's the highest touch, that kind of thing. Someone did ask a question: how do you distribute your course to clients? And so the course that I use, or the software that I use, is a platform called Mighty Networks. So Mighty Networks. If you just look it up, you'll be able to see that it has a whole platform that you can create a digital course. And then they actually have a whole selling platform within that. And then, so I would just market that. For example, I'd market my one-to-one coaching service, which I have, but then sometimes throughout the year, or as a downsell, I would market my course for people to buy through the Mighty Networks platform. So hope that answers what you're looking for.
And guys, I just wanted to add in here real quick. This might be diving into a little something different, but if you do have a repertoire of different price ranges and different products, this is only going to help your business, right? This is only going to make people think, oh, they have an option for me, right? Because as you create these options for your clients that, of course, the one-on-one coaching has time and energy investment that doesn't, always directly translate to those billable hours. Like those hours are many more than, for instance, Matt's example, a package that is already created and he doesn't even have to touch it anymore. He just presses send, right? People understand that, but people also want that. If I'm paying a certain amount of money a month for a trainer and I recommend this trainer to my friend, but she says, oh, I don't want to pay that, I can say, well, they actually have another option that's not as many, one-on-one sessions, but it's an option for them, right? So this is only going to help your business grow, which is super exciting. That's how I think, right? What's gonna help my business grow? But I just wanted to add that in there real quick.
Absolutely. And the last thing on this before we move on, because this is super important, because I know we just talked about some of the passive income stuff. We talked about the courses, those types of things. I know how appealing those types of things can be, especially whenever first starting out, or like having some type of membership site. The idea of getting recurring revenue, especially passive income, thinking of like, oh, I don't have to work and I just get sales coming in. That is very, very difficult to do. And I would actually not recommend doing it in the beginning stages of your business. In the beginning, you need to be able to, you have fewer clients. So if you're going to have fewer people come to your business, it's better to spend your time helping out those people one-to-one, charging a higher price point than say, having a membership site. Let's say you have 3 people in there, right, paying you $50 a month, and you're going to have to put in the same amount of time and energy into keeping those 3 people as you would getting one client for, let's say, $300 a month, right? So that's just something to think about.
No, it's a really good point. Very good. And again, just to hammer in the point of these things solve different problems, and it's not the high end isn't better, the low end isn't better. You just have to understand the trade-offs of them. You have to understand, they're tools. They're tools.
Yes.
So we actually touched on most of these 4 factors on this slide. The only other one that we hadn't yet, as I go to the next one, is the personal branding and image. And I'm not going to touch on this a ton, but it's something to think about from a trade-off perspective. And so how do you want people to view you? I think that's something to keep in mind. Do you want to be viewed as a really high-end service? If so, understand what you have to do to build that aesthetic. And that means your prices are going to be high and you're going to be involved. It's another piece that will play into the story of your services. And so again, this isn't probably let's start here. And I know I want to be high end. This is probably like a secondary piece where you say, how can my personal branding and image reflect my pricing and my services and the problems I solve? But it's another piece of the pie to take into consideration. Yeah.
Yep.
Let's keep moving here. So a little more concrete now. Obviously, experience education. These two things are going to impact your pricing as well. I mean, there's no doubt about that. So back to kind of what Matt was saying, to start, it's okay to start on the lower end of pricing. So I've been running a business for a while. There was in the first, 6 months, I would raise my prices to consistently with every client that I had until I kind of figured out the breaking point to some degree. And that's partially because my first client, I didn't know what I was doing really. And that warrants a lower price. A lower price also lowers the barrier to entry because you gain other things by working with people. In fact, if you're just getting started, working with people for free is a totally viable option if you're able to do that, purely based on the amount that you're able to learn and gain. That's going to result in a better service for you. So if you have experience and you have more experience, you're warranted to gain your prices or to raise your prices. And if you're not, don't feel the urge to come out of the gate at $100 an hour. The learning that you're going to get is going to be very worth it. And same with education too. I mean, these are really your showcases of like, I know what I'm doing. Here's what I've been doing this for 4 years. So these are the mistakes I've learned and what I won't make it with you. That's worth more money.
Yeah. And the testimonials we get out of those as well is super valuable.
Totally.
So the education, all of those things, education, testimonials, the experience that you get with that, working with people, all of those things will be helpful. But I would try, and even if it's literally like $20, I remember whenever I first started out, I actually still have the picture of the first transaction that I made with a customer. It was one of my friends because it was in college. And it was $45 a month for both training and nutrition. And I did it on Snap Cash, which is now known as the Cash App, right? So they actually bought, and it was literally it was in my campus college gym that I was exchanging money with people. But the point is, make sure that I would have them pay something just so they have a little bit of skin in the game. Even if it is $20, just a small amount is enough to make sure that they actually take it seriously. So yeah, just want to note that.
Cool. Yeah, perfect. And then self-worth, guys, we talked about it. I mean, it's important, we don't hammer on it too much because it's how do you measure it? But it's crucial. So if you're getting objections a lot, it's a piece to look at. And I'm not going to go into it again because we already did, unless Matt or Sam have anything else to say.
No, as a note, I would charge more than $45 now if I was just starting out. Just wanted to make that very, very clear. I would charge more. I would charge more. That's just what I did because I had no idea what to do.
But there also isn't there's not this is the minimum that you need to charge when you're starting out. I mean, I definitely worked with clients for free, and I agree with you. When someone pays, they have more skin in the game at the start. If you're just starting out and you've never worked with a client, the thing that's going to move you take the biggest step forward is working with a client. So I think that's highest priority.
Actually, Alex, let's mesh them together, dude. And let's say, hey, it's free until you reach your goal and then you pay me. How about that? Like I feel like that's a good motivation. It's just like, okay, you want to lose 10 pounds? Cool. It's going to be free. But whenever we lose 10 pounds, then you've got to pay me whatever, $100 or whatever it is.
It could work. There's no wrong way to go about pricing when you're literally just starting.
Correct.
Start low, get experience, over deliver like crazy,
yes.
Build great relationships. That is going to serve you so much more in the long run than getting the right pricing on your first client or whatever. Matt said at the very start, it's an iterative process.
Still to this day is an iterative process. Just letting you guys know, it's still an iterative process to this day.
Definitely.
Joshua asks, is there an industry standard minimum? No, there's not.
No,
there's definitely not.
It's very, it's the fitness industry is not regulated. So, you can work at a gym and get paid 18 an hour and they charge 80 an hour for their sessions. Or, you can see online coaches charging 20 to 30 an hour for a live kind of virtual session or whatever it may be. It's
again, use these factors right here: experience, education, self-worth, all these different things that can go into you charging your prices. And then basically over time, like if everyone's saying yes to you and everyone keeps paying what you're charging, you're probably charging too little. So whenever people are constantly paying, then with the next person, try and charge a little bit more, and then just do that incrementally over time. And you'll gain confidence, and then you'll realize, okay, maybe here's my sweet spot, at least for what I'm the value that I seem to be portraying to potential customers.
Absolutely. So let's dive into a few of the different possible structures that we could build with online training, with hybrid training, with group training. Let's just talk about a few principles that would go into each of these kind of different approaches. And then let's look at some examples of how successful businesses have priced their own services. And again, we use examples to show one way that these factors can manifest themselves. It's not a recommendation to go out and copy exactly what they're doing. So again, it's helpful to determine an hourly rate for you. This can be done in a lot of different ways, and a lot of different ways, like what we've been saying the whole time, where you can start at a random number and go up from there. You can use what you're getting paid now. You can also use what you need to support your lifestyle and how many clients you want to work with to form an hourly rate. But as you're thinking about the work that's going into it, it's helpful to have what am I getting paid for this work, so I can determine a price point. And again, I always am a fan of starting low when you have 0 clients, because you don't have experience. Maybe you have some education if you've taken a fitness mentors course or whatever it may be. But experience is number one. So start low, but keep in the back of your mind, you want to establish this number, and then have that always be changing, likely going up. You can also obviously offer different packages. We've talked about most of this already. I'm not gonna hammer into it. Different packages for different needs, solving different problems. Let's dive in. So one-on-one online training. And again, we say online training, this can be in person or online. This is really the most simple, straightforward. You're working with a client one-on-one. There's no additional benefits, or there's no additional like perks or whatever it may be. And personally, when I was just starting, I just had one package where I'm like, this is what you get. It's at this price point. I use these factors to say, okay, this is how much work it's going to be. It's at this price point. Let's just really understand one package well before we branch out and say, you can have the middle, the low, or the high tier. A really interesting thing. So I added this note in because this was my experience where I had my one package, and then these other packages started to kind of form themselves to some degree, where I would have some clients say, I don't need this, this, or that, or I really only need this. So I'd be like, oh, okay. So then I would take it out of their program, and they were essentially like on a lower end package, but I didn't know that at the time. Or clients were like, I'm really craving this extra thing, or I really want you here at some points, or whatever it may be. And I listened to client demand to help me form my low and high end packages, because I didn't really know to start what I needed or what my clients needed. And so I didn't want to build something that I wasn't sure would solve a real problem. And I wanted to start with one and then allow the feedback to shape my other ones. So Matt or Sam, anything on that before we get to a couple examples here?
Yes, I think start off very simple. I think starting with a monthly package makes a lot of sense. Just to begin, just how much, like a single price point, or if they want to pay for, say 6 months up front or something like that. I think having a monthly option of just like a standard fee of this is what you can pay if you want to pay monthly, or if you want to pay, say 3, 4, 5, 6 months up front, you can maybe get like a 10% discount or something like that. Mm-hmm. I think that's enough variation. Too much variation can, cause the paradox of choice. So keep it really simple in the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Definitely. I agree with that.
So this is actually a past student of mine. his name's Daniel Lopez. This is how he prices his services. And before we dive fully in, there's a huge conversation of, should I publish my prices publicly or not? And I want to touch on that briefly. It's up to you. There's trade-offs, again, like with everything. So, you know, the no column says people should understand the value of your price or of your services before they know the price, right? That's what the no column argues, where they say, we don't publish our prices up front because we don't want to weed out people who would actually benefit from the service, but they have an immediate negative reaction to the price when they see it. The downside in the no column is people don't like a lack of transparency, oftentimes, including myself. The upside in the yes column is your cards are on the table. There's no questions, there's no confusion. You don't get to the end of a call and then have to share your price and say, this is what it is. And then they're like, oh, if I knew that, I wouldn't have gone on the call in the first place, or whatever it may be. So I'm happy for Matt and Sam to share here. I personally, and how I operate in my training business, is I publish my prices. Sometimes it will be a range where I will say this package will range from $200 to $500 a month, depending on what you need. Mm-hmm. But personally, I am not a fan, and I don't often recommend my students take this route of hiding your prices 100% and only sharing them to a lead. That's my take, but I'm curious what Matt and Sam think about that.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I do the same thing, actually. I give a range. So I do offer nutrition only coaching. And then I also offer both training and nutrition coaching. And so that range, obviously, like Alex just said, where you said, what'd you say, like 200 to 500 or something like that, giving a big enough range where it's just like, okay, it's going to fall somewhere in between that. I think that is totally fine. I also know that some people, they'll say, they'll compare it to a car payment or something. They'll compare it to something where people already have a general understanding of how much something like that would cost. Or they're just like, if you're not ready to make a mid 3-figure investment into your health and fitness, then this is not going to be for you. And I do have a qualifier on my coaching application. I was like, I put, are you in a financial position to like heavily invest in your health and fitness right now or something? They have to put yes or no. And so if they have no, then of course they don't even get through to the next stage of filtering. So yeah, I think it is good. It's good just for qualifying leads, honestly. Yeah,
definitely. Cool. So you can see here, actually Daniel prices it every week. He has 4 options. The lowest option being the flagship program with instructions to do it on your own. So this is no involvement from him. All the work is done beforehand, and he is selling this as a one-off. So when someone purchases this from his website, he doesn't do anything. And then it goes up a little bit more. So this is guided, and you can see here, okay, weekly accountability check-ins, video phone check-ins as needed, video form checks as needed. Now we're getting a little bit more involved. We're seeing what they're doing, and we're providing feedback. That's worth more money. And then you go to the next package and the next package, and it's just continuing to add perks that some clients might not need, and that's 100% okay. But I know for a fact, because I helped Daniel build this, that there's a demand for it. And in fact, he only had these 3 options to start, and then from this program, he's like, I'm seeing a demand for something more involved. And that bred kind of the fully individualized, let me take each person differently and build for them. So I think it's really interesting.
Alex, we did have a couple great questions.
Sure.
Kate asked, and this is super awesome, would you have them sign up for a minimum amount of time, like 3 months? And then we also had another question from Miles, knowing the client's goals will help form which package is needed, ? So going to Kate's question, would you have them sign up for a minimum amount of time?
Yes. It's also dependent on your services. My minimum was 3 months. And it was a simple reason I don't think I can get you results in less than that time.
Mhm.
And
I
I don't
agree. I'm the same
want,
exact way.
yeah. And I don't want to prioritize or be aligned with getting insane results in like a month or whatever. It just was never my personality. So yes, I had them sign up for a minimum. Obviously, there's a benefit of that to the business owner. There's some predictability, but how I communicated it to the public is this is the minimum amount of time that both of us need,
Yeah.
the client and me, to like build habits and start seeing actual results. Because if you work with a client for a month, they're going to be like, this didn't work.
Right.
They'll be like, now obviously it's dependent on your services. But if we're talking one-on-one training and it's just, you're getting people results from the health perspective and whatever, I certainly do have a minimum.
And it can also help people be held accountable, and especially people that aren't used to that feeling of being held accountable to something. It's going to create this sense of like, okay, for the next 3 months, I got to be on it. Right. And then come those 3 months, they're probably going to want to re-sign with you. And it's realistic. It's not like you're like, oh yes, in 3 weeks, you're going to lose blah, blah, blah. It's a realistic number. I agree, Alex, completely. That 3-month mark, 9 to 10 weeks is a good, or I would say 9 to 12 weeks is like a good.
Yeah.
It's all about conveying, like Alex said, it's all about conveying why there's a 3-month minimum, why you're charging $300 a month, why you're charging $500 a month, right? Like why you're doing any of these things, like have good reasonings behind that and convey that to the client. And they will, say that with confidence, make it logical and rational. And they'll be like, oh yeah, that does make sense. Actually say, in my experience of working with people in the first 4 weeks is usually a lot of trial and error anyway. And then after that is whenever we can really start to hit the ground running. And then, at the 8-week mark is whenever you actually start to see results appear in the mirror, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
Anything like that, like all of those things are act like legit the truth, and just make sure you convey that instead of just being like, oh, well, it's just kind of the amount of months that I have people do.
Right. You should, his apartment is falling down.
Okay?
I'm getting excited. Yeah, I'm moving around. I'm getting comfortable.
Matt's finally settled in here. Prepare yourself, folks.
He's amped.
He's amped. No, it's slightly off topic, but setting expectations appropriately is huge. I mean, being transparent about the why. I say to my clients, you're not going to see the physical results in the first week, 2 weeks. They should not be expecting that. So, yes, I agree with all that. And 100% agree to the second question as well, which I think was around the solution depends on the problem or something in that.
Yeah, knowing the client's goals will help form which package is needed.
Oh, so
100%.
So that would be the difference of because you can do that as well, in the sense of this is the difference between like an ongoing fixed rate and maybe like an actual package. So it's like if somebody wants to lose 25 pounds, you could say that, okay, that's going to take you about 6 months. Here's my price for that. So you can give the person a price customized to their specific goal. And so like you're focusing on an outcome as opposed to here's the monthly rate, right?
Yeah.
Both of those can work. I've seen both of those work tremendously well.
Totally. I mean, as we'll get to in a second, there's businesses who don't do any coaching and they just sell programs, and they're appealing to, because that is a unique problem to solve, where I don't want a coach. I want somebody to just give me the darn program and tell me what to do. Great. And so if you're talking to a client, and they tell you what they need, absolutely. That's what fuels your recommendation of, perfect. I understand you need this. This fits into this service that I have, or this package that I have. It's rooted in what the client needs 100%. And that's back to the point of like, there's no right or wrong with it. It's just, what do they need? If they want their handheld, great. Then that involves more of your time, and that's more money. And that's just the nature of business. But it definitely, it absolutely is rooted from what the client needs, for sure. And that's the benefit of having multiple packages, is you have multiple offerings to solve different problems. And that's also the benefit of having one package and then allowing what the client needs to kind of dictate your upper and lower packages. So I'm always a fan of rooting it in a problem to be solved. No question. So this is another really interesting example, also of one-on-one training. You can see they took slightly different approaches. So Daniel here laid out all of his stuff, what's included. He priced it weekly. He had 4 different packages. Ren here, I was another student of mine. He took a different approach, and his pricing structure was not, he has one package, and his different pricing was around, how do you pay me? Do you want to do 3 months, or do you want to do 6 months? Do you want to pay in full, or do you want to do a payment plan? The pay in full, you save a little bit of money. That's pretty standard. And he just outlines his program on a site, and it's not flashy. I can also give added context to this because I know Ren personally, and he does an unbelievable job of rapport building and brand building of his own personal brand. And so when people hit his website, they already know what they're getting into. They probably already know Ren.
They're qualified.
They're already qualified. So the website doesn't have to do as much. So and this is a perfect reflection of that. And by the way, this works just as well as this. This is going to be for somebody who doesn't know Daniel really. And it's like, what does he offer? I need to understand what it is. And this is a slightly different approach. And again, one package. And Ren has been doing this for, he was a student of mine back in 2016.
Yeah.
And he was already a trainer before that. So he's been doing this for a while. And this is still how he's operating, and he's thriving. So we've talked about this one a little bit, so I'm not going to go crazy deep into it. These are like non-personalized, pre-made, no coaching involved. This one is pretty freaking simple. So how much time does it take you to build? Start there. If you're selling a program for over $100, it better be pretty freaking good.
This would be like a 12-week workout program, guys. So like, or
exactly
something like that, or some type of meal plan type thing. Well, not exactly that, but
not a meal plan, but it just
could be like a PDF.
It's something that's made for a specific goal that someone takes and runs with it, as we've seen. And so this doesn't require ongoing work, and so it's a lot easier to price. And again, it's understanding what problem you're trying to solve with these. Would a like flexibility or mobility type of program be something valuable for clients and something that you don't have to be with them for, or, the options are literally endless. But just understand who would buy it. Ask yourself what person or what situation would buy this.
Yeah.
So, there's a ton of examples on here, but V-Shred is one example. They're most of their business, possibly all of their business, I'm not 1,000% sure, are these pre-made programs. And so they tackle really niche goals. And, this isn't an approach that I would personally take. It's not aligned with me. I don't align with the language, but it works, and it's an option. And it's helpful to understand why it works when you're planning your own situation. And if you do go this route and you want to revolve your business around the pre-made programs route, again, very, very challenging to do at the start. But I would go very niche with it and have a single program for very specific things. This was the first page, but you could scroll down this page and there was possibly like hundreds of them. I don't know, but there's so many. So I think high quantity is probably going to be a key piece in this business.
And just real quick on this too, because again, I know the appeal of this stuff can be very enticing or whatever, but the thing with these, and what you'll notice is that the people who sell these on social media are the people who have hundreds of thousands of followers, because for them, it makes sense to have a price point that is super low because they have such a high volume of attention, right? If you have 300 followers and you're trying to make a living off selling $20 ebooks, it's like you're in for a rude awakening. However, if you have 100,000 followers and then you have, let's say, a high ticket one-to-one coaching program, well, that's going to fill up probably very quickly, and you can charge a high price point for that. But for everybody else, what makes sense? It makes sense to have something more passive, something that people can just buy immediately from your website. Or, for example, this is where membership sites make sense, because if you have 500,000 followers and you have a membership site, Well, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be able to go in and out through that, but it's going to be the same amount of work for you. And then the amount of people obviously is up to your audience, but that doesn't make sense if you have a smaller amount of attention.
Especially to start, but also just to counter that slightly, you can still have it available if you have a small following as a tool to solve a problem.
Yes.
Or for a client who says, I don't want the coaching, I want a program.
Yeah.
You can still have it as a tool in your toolbox.
It can be a downsell
to pitch, for sure.
Or just a one-off, right?
But it's more of, yes, but I think it's as simple as you're talking to a client, they say they need this, you have it available.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, absolutely.
That's it. And so I agree. If you want to revolve your business model around this and you don't have a lot of attention from an audience perspective, very hard to do. You're going to be better off building relationships with your 300 people and like going deep with them than like trying to sell.
Right. That's what I was the takeaway is like, this shouldn't be the core offer that you're doing with people. It can be a nice add-on and a bonus.
To start. It could evolve into it, but
correct.
It's a challenging path to start. Yeah. Cool. Mm-hmm. The hybrid model is always fun to think about. So this is merging in-person and online training, and usually for the same clients. So it's not so much about two parallel businesses of like, I have my online business and I have my in-person business. If that's the case, pricing should probably just, be independent to those businesses. This is, I'm going to meet with a client once a week, and then the rest of the time I'm going to work out with them online or whatever it may be. So a really common approach to pricing a hybrid plan is to have a set fee for your in-person sessions. So this is whatever it may be, this is a little bit easier to figure out, and then have a monthly fee for your online work. And so it's helpful to think about it almost as two separate businesses that you then combine into one package. So when you're thinking about the hybrid model, it's more of like, okay, and we'll get to examples here because I know this is sometimes hard to take in. But it's like, okay, let's say one package is one session a week and 4 sessions online. So then you would say, okay, my in-person session rate is 50 an hour. So that's 50. And then you use the factors that we talked about to price your online session. Okay, what's actually being delivered online? They're doing this. It requires this much of my time on a monthly basis, on a weekly basis, whatever it may be. Figure out the online portion, merge those together. That's one single package now. And then you can replicate that for what if a client wants to meet 2 or 3 times a week and then have 2 workouts online delivered? Or what if a client wants to meet once a month, and have the rest of the workouts delivered online? No right or wrong answers here. And again, common theme, it's so back to what the client needs and wants.
Yeah, which actually, Alex, you don't care. Mildred has a really awesome question in the chat.
Please, yeah.
I'll go ahead and read it. So just, I mainly work with special population clients, especially those that suffer from Parkinson's disease and other neurological disorders. Because they know that they will have improved quality of life through exercise, they will definitely pay whatever you ask for the rest of their lives. So when you have clients that are going to be with you until the end of their lives, do you charge less? It is a lot more work, so I want to get paid for my time, but they are also lifelong clients. Okay, here it's
a great question.
It's an amazing question, but Mildred, well, one, kudos. I'm really biting my tongue not to cuss right now, but kudos to you for working with these people. But 2, it's what feels right. What are your intentions are all, that's what matters, right? Like any amount that you decide to charge for them, I obviously charge what you are worth, because clearly that is going to be a lot. But you're going to know personally the type of value you bring to these people's lives. And so it's like, how much that is worth to that person. It almost makes me emotional thinking about it, to be 100% honest. But it's like, it is that value that you can bring to those people. It can be worth so much. So Mildred, obviously follow your heart and follow your gut on something like that, and just charge what you think makes sense. But obviously, charge what you're worth, and then also trust your gut in that sense.
I agree. The only thing I'd add to that is you don't So I'm not speaking, but my brain is moving. But there's so many thoughts. I'm like, nothing's coming out, but my brain is working.
Happens to me all. So it's all good.
I was just gonna say, you want to at least have a threat. Like, you don't want to get burnt out. You don't want to get to a point where your services are suffering. You don't want to get to a point where you can't support your lifestyle. You don't want to get to a point where any of that. So I agree with Matt 100%. Do with what feels right for you. Ensure that your cup is full.
That's what I was trying to get at. That's what I was trying to get at, but I literally couldn't gather my words and my thoughts. But it's yes, because you charging less and not being able to provide the service that they need isn't doing a service for either of you, right? So it's like, charge what you're worth so that you can give them a higher quality service, right? That's the key. That's why I said, I know your intentions are going to be good. So that's the point that we're trying to, like, if you need permission to charge more, this is your permission.
You totally have that right.
Yes.
You just you need to feel good about it though. And you can't sacrifice your own well-being just because you want to help people, because it's tempting. And I'm not saying this is you. It's kind of me to some degree, but the way that we're going to help the most people consistently and be the best for others is when we take care of ourselves first. And that's just the reality. So I would say, do what feels right. I agree with you. Just my life principles would say, money is not my number one goal in life. And so it's like, would not want to squeeze out as much money as possible from these people. That would not be my approach either. So I would charge as little as I can while not overworking myself and not getting burnt out and still feeling confident in what I'm doing and feeling like I'm getting paid what I'm worth, so it's going to be some internal work, some high level stuff, and then some like hard numbers to crunch too. So but hopefully that helps a little bit.
Cool.
It's a great question. I know it has me thinking about life now.
I know. Emotional over here, guys.
We could go on tangents. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, who's cutting the onions?
Me. I have an onion here. Yeah. I always have an onion handy in case I start crying. Just to hold it up. No, it's the onion.
We can blame it. We can blame the onion.
I love it. Now these hybrid plans seem so inconsequential, but so the hybrid model is one of my favorite models, especially if you're already working in person. It's very easy to be like, hey, you travel a lot, or it's hard for us to find a time to meet consistently because you live far away from the gym, or my client roster's full, or whatever it may be. Let's meet once a week and do the rest online, blah, blah, blah. So it's, again, another tool in your toolbox to solve a real problem. So this is Timber Hill Athletic Club. This is an athletic club in Corvallis, Oregon, where I went to college at Oregon State. Funny enough, I was researching different hybrid options to share here, and I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize this was the case. So this is close to home, and you can just see their breakdown a little bit here, and so I actually, funny enough, I worked for them for a little bit in college, and this was not alive when I was in college. This structure was not there, and so I know for a fact that this was bred off of their demand from their people, and so they break it down into 1 month, 3, and 6, and they break it down into how many sessions do you want over that period. That's how they dictate the pricing. So if you want 1 session a month, but most of it is online, then that's that price. That's obviously going to be much cheaper than 4 a month, or whatever it may be. So just one example there. Last example that we're going to go over here. Well, Sam, you want to chat a little bit about this one, since this was
Sure.
more your area?
Yeah, guys. So the last one we're going to chat about today is your online group personal trainer. So, this is going to pertain to a bunch of different types and styles. I'm sure we all saw it, especially during COVID. A lot of places, especially big businesses like Orange Theory, Soul Cycle, all these places were doing group online classes. So now there are a lot of personal trainers out there who set up group classes over Zoom or there's a lot of databases now that you can do group training. So this is something that we've seen, but especially since COVID. So the group trainer model is a way to work with obviously more than one person at a time. Also, a lot of clients like this version of training. I know a lot of my personal training clients actually love when I personally do free personal group training courses on my Zoom account, just because I'm at a place where that's super fun for me as well. And a lot of people love that. They feel the energy in the room, just like right now, like Matt, Alex, and I all feel each other's energy. That's what people are getting when you do a Zoom online group class. So that's super great. As it says here, it is, the individuality and the personalized portion of this is low, right? You're going to create a regimen and program that is probably for a wide range of age, ability, all of that will tie into this, but this will allow you to take more than one client on. That also probably means, though, that you are having a lower price per person in these classes. So that is something to remember as you go. Similar to what Alex was just talking about with the hybrid solution, you also can do, like I do, you can have one-on-one clients, and you also can have group classes, right? It's kind of what works for you. And I know a lot of personal trainers who do not do group classes because they simply don't like it, right? So that's also a thing. So there's two types of ways that I recommend kind of pricing your group training. I know that there's a bunch out there, but you have the membership model, or you have a amount of classes that you will pay for. So similar to a session. Alex, if we want to hop over to that next page.
Yep.
So I'm not sure if anyone in here is familiar. Rumble Training. It's in LA, New York. I'm pretty sure Justin Bieber started it or had something to do with it.
Oh, did he?
I think maybe I shouldn't say that on this webinar because I could be wrong, but I'm almost positive.
Okay.
But I'm a big boxing fan. And when I lived in New York City, I loved going to Rumble. It's group boxing, super fun. There's a DJ in the middle. I mean, who wouldn't want to go, right? So they have two different ways that they price it. Obviously they're a huge company, but I think their model is actually super valuable for, a starting personal trainer to look at and a really busy personal trainer, right? So obviously they have their membership example. They do a 7-day free trial. That's something that maybe we can touch on at the end here, actually, because I do think free trials are valuable in ways when they're done correctly. So they have their 7-day free trial right here. They have a limited time special that they always have going on, and then their regular annual fee. If you know that you have a bunch of clients that are going to sign up for a group class with you, perhaps every week or even more than once a week, memberships are, in my opinion, valuable because that's going to keep people coming back to you, right? Now, pricing those, you're going to want it to be a price where you're getting your money's worth and what you're valued for, but also something that's a bang for their buck, right? Because this might be the only form of workout that they're doing. They might not be doing one-on-one classes with you. They might only just want a membership with you for these group classes. Now, your other example is going to be a package. They call it packs at Rumble. I've seen a bunch of different trainers do a lot of different things. Kayla Steins, I think that's her name. She's huge on Instagram. Is that her name, guys? Kayla Steins?
Kayla, it's Steen or whatever it is.
Yeah. She
like
during COVID, during COVID did a bunch of live workouts. And then after that, of course, people saw these free live workouts and they were like, do you do group training? So she did start a series of group training where people could buy a certain amount of classes. That's also super valuable. And you can charge a good amount for per class, depending on what you're offering. But as I said before, this is going to be a more general, overall fitness class. It's not going to be as one-on-one personalized individual. So it will have to be less probably than a personal training session. Do you guys agree with that? I mean, I think that's also just one of those things that if you're putting probably more time into programming for a one-on-one client, because you know their injuries, you know their health, you know everything about them, right? So whereas there's a lot more that comes with the group fitness class, but there's going to be perhaps a lot less time when it comes to client versus
it's the principle that we could probably, I know that we've got to wrap up here soon because of time, but it's the same principle of just like, if you're spending more time, if it's taking more experience, if it's you're giving a more customized approach, you're going to be able to charge more. If it's going to be less touch, if it's going to be less customized, the problems you're solving are as complex, then it's going to be a little bit less price heavy. So I think that's one of the main principles you guys can learn from this. But I do know we are coming close to time, so we should.
Yes, we'll wrap up here. Just my last point on the group is there's a spectrum within group training. You know, there's you can get pretty close to one-on-one training with, you train 2 or 3 people in a group, and they're all individualized. You know, that's actually going to be a little bit more than a one-on-one session. Or, you know, the other end of the spectrum is like peer membership model, where they pay a fee to get behind a paywall to get access to workouts or whatever it may be. And that's going to be closer to the pre-made program route. So there's a spectrum within this, but the principles we've been talking about are all the same, like Matt just said.
Absolutely. Alex, we do have a question.
Okay.
Christine wants to know, how do you choose how many check-ins you offer a client without charging per check-in?
So two things. One, you don't charge separately for a check-in. So if you would work a check-in into your price. So if you have 2 check-ins a month or whatever, or a week or whatever it may be, which I'll get to how you figure that out in a second. You would figure out, how much time is that taking me? How much money do I need for that time? Or, you know, and you work that in, that's a piece of your package. When it comes to how many do I do, this goes back to, you know, how involved do you want to be with your clients and what are they needing? You know, for some clients, once a week is perfect. That's pretty regular. You know, if you want to like see them once a week and say, how are things going? Let's talk about the program. Now, if you're talking like checking in on their program, that should happen like pretty regularly. And you work that into the programming price of your backend kind of pricing. You know, you don't say this is the price for programming, this is the price for check-ins. It's all one. So, you know, it's all about what does the client need.
The answer is how many what does it take for you to solve the problem your client is looking for, right? Like, it's like, if your client says, I want to lose 20 pounds, does it matter if you're checking in once per week or 7 times per week, as long as they're getting to their goal, right? Like, I think that's one of the big things. And of course, you can have more than that. Like, you can have more than just 1 check-in per week. However, don't always assume that more check-ins are better and less check-ins are worse. Exactly. Because she just followed up. She said, I meant text or email support and encouragement. Again, make sure that this is very clear whenever you start your business. Because I have friends who have offered daily check-in support. Or 24/7 support, and they checked in with their clients every day. And it worked whenever they had just, 5 or 10 clients. But whenever they got up to 30, 40, 50, 60 upwards. I have a friend who had 100 clients and was email checking in with them every single day. And it was just, he was working his face off. And I was just like, but the thing is, then he was able to cut down on that, obviously, to 1 time per week, and nothing happened. Like, the results were the exact same, except he had way less work on his plate. So it's like, if you are going to do text or email support, like, just have very, very clear boundaries and understand that what you can do in the beginning is not what you're going to be able to maintain whenever you start to get more clients.
Yeah. And 100%. And if you're checking in every single day, if you decide, hey, I need to be there every day, or my clients need to hear from me every single day, that's worth more money. I mean, and so you don't need 100 clients then to support yourself.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Right. Because if you are going to have somebody that you touch point with more often, you do that. I would charge that. I would charge much higher for that. But I would also challenge you to be like, are you enabling this person to not make choices and decisions on their own? Because that's also a big problem with checking in very frequently, is that whenever any client has any question on the face of the earth, they're going to hit you up. And because you have set the precedent that you are going to answer their questions every single day, they are going to come up with more questions as opposed to figuring them out on their own, or waiting until, the weekly check-in where you have them ask all of their questions, you answer all of them at one time, and all of those other little small questions that probably don't matter anyway, they find a magical way of solving themselves.
Yes.
So definitely remember that.
The system I found that has worked well for me is like Matt just said, I often check in once a week via email. And it's more of like, this is when I would do my check-ins. This is, they is the most important part here versus do I do one or two or whatever, is the client's expectations are set appropriately. They know what they're getting themselves into. Exactly. So if you say, I only respond once a week to emails, and then you respond once a week, or maybe you're feeling wild and you're like, I'll respond on a Wednesday because I'm over delivering. That's fine, but
not expected.
It's not expected. And now you're over delivering by choice.
Yes.
And which is great. So
which is a great system actually.
Right. So it was kind of a roundabout answer to your question, but hopefully that.
Yeah, she said that was just the answer I was looking for. So we're all set.
Cool. Awesome, guys. Well, any other questions, please feel free to pop them in the chat. We have a few more minutes. We're happy to stay around and chat. While you're popping any more questions in, we want to talk about some of the products that we have on our end that can help you kind of implement these things. A lot of this is theory, which is super helpful and a good starting point. But if you're looking for more really practical guidance on how to take these principles and apply it to your own business and situation and give it life in your world, this is really where this extra guidance can come into play. And we have a whole host of online coaching certifications specifically around these kind of principles that we've been talking about. So we'll actually be posting some links here in the chat, and we don't have a promo running right now. However, we do have a promo running for this webinar to get 20% off of any of these certifications. And so I'll be posting 3 links in the chat: the certified online personal trainer, certified online nutrition coach, and then certified online group fitness instructor, slightly kind of tweaked to be geared towards that line of work specifically, with some of the trade-offs that we were kind of talking about on the webinar today. So any questions about that, let us know. Feel free to reach out to us anytime to take advantage of that webinar 20 code.
As always, thanks for listening to the Certified Personal Trainer Podcast. You can learn more about fitness mentors at fitnessmentors.com. Be sure to share this podcast on social media. And remember, we are here to help you succeed.